The U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York has asked Janell Grant to pause her lawsuit against Vince McMahon while the Department of Justice conducts a private investigation of McMahon and the WWE. This move has wrestling fans thinking of several potential outcomes. Could this be the end of Vince McMahon? Will he land in prison? The answer to those questions cannot be said right now. What I can tell you is that things are getting serious, as the federal government would not pause the lawsuit to conduct a private investigation without a multitude of evidence against Vince. For those of you who live under a rock and don't know, Janell Grant is the former employee of WWE, which McMahon had a relationship with. She sued McMahon after he failed to pay her $3 million in hush money he promised her. The lawsuits contain all types of nasty allegations against McMahon, including sex trafficking, sexual, and emotional abuse. WWE has distanced themselves entirely from McMahon, having him resign from his position as the executive chairman, not acknowledging his existence, and even blurring him out in WWE 2K24. And it just came out that he's not even allowed to enter the WWE headquarters and use the gym that he built for himself. Vince McMahon has notoriously dodged several legal bullets throughout his tenure as the owner of the WWF/WWE, dating all the way back to 1983. The first incident that easily could have taken the WWE down was when Jimmy Snuka murdered his girlfriend, Nancy Argentino. Allegedly, McMahon covered this up. Following this was the Ring Boy scandal and the steroids trial of the early 90s. He was actually investigated by the feds for the steroids trial, and in large part, thanks to Terry Bollea, McMahon walked away unscathed. Wrestlers have died in his ring, live on pay-per-view. Others have gone crazy off of steroids or CTE and wiped out their family and themselves. Through all of this adversity, however, McMahon has continued to walk free and do what he does best. Now, with the DOJ finally officially conducting a private investigation of McMahon, it seems, pardon the pun, his time is up. He has already been erased from WWE history altogether. Next up, could we see McMahon on the news in handcuffs? McMahon has seemingly been in panic mode, selling off millions of shares in TKO stock. Presumably, he's doing this to compile all the money he can for legal fees, barring the feds freeze his assets. Like McMahon, rapper Puff Daddy has also been in the news for sexual misconduct and abuse allegations. Seemingly, many big-name celebrities and people often viewed as moguls or larger-than-life personas are now being brought down to earth. As the saying goes, what's done in the dark will always come to light. Aside from the big news surrounding the stay on Janell Grant's lawsuit, McMahon made other headlines recently. This was thanks to Missy Hyatt. She alleged that McMahon made an unwanted pass at her in 1987 when she was trying out for the WWF. In her words, McMahon, quote, tried to stick his tongue down her throat at her hotel. Hyatt went on to say how McMahon pulled his initial job offer to her of a valet and on-air talent for a much smaller role, one he knew she would reject. This happened because she refused to sleep with McMahon, according to Hyatt. Now that the news of McMahon's actions have become public knowledge, it is expected that more women, aside from Hyatt, will come forward with their own stories of sleazy encounters with the former monarch of pro wrestling. Likely they will feel safer to speak up than in prior instances. Randy Orton gave an interview to Sportskeeda Wrestling on June 4th. In it, he spoke candidly about what kind of boss McMahon was. He mentioned how McMahon had no remorse for Orton when he asked the boss for a reduced schedule due to injuries, or when he asked McMahon for time off to be with his kids for their birthdays. Orton continued by saying that it was time for McMahon to go, and he greatly prefers the Triple H regime over McMahon's. This last update is about the Beast Incarnate, Brock Lesnar. Notably, Brock Lesnar was pulled from this year's Royal Rumble, and his rumored match with Gunther at WrestleMania 40 was scrapped after his involvement in Grant's case. Now, Brock was not mentioned by name, but his involvement in the misconduct allegations was heavily implied by the legal document. In it, there was a reference to a top WWE superstar and former star of the UFC, who Vince McMahon trafficked Grant to in an effort to convince the superstar to re-sign with WWE. In the following months, Brock Lesnar made his return to WWE.com's roster page, which led many to believe he'd be back in WWE in no time. Months have passed and he still hasn't made his return. Dave Meltzer reported on the situation in the Wrestling Observer newsletter, stating that Brock Lesnar's name has not yet been cleared by WWE's legal team. Lesnar likely will not be cleared until the investigation into McMahon unfolds fully. It's a crazy time to be a wrestling fan, and we are quite literally living the downfall of an American icon. A downfall that has brought forward shame and disgrace, so much so that Vince's own son Shane has remained completely silent during these investigations. That'll do it for this edition of Wrestling Uncovered, and I'll talk to you on the next one. Peace. Have a great day.